Like in your wildest imagination, even with Tipperary struggling as the way that they were, and obviously your performance versus Limerick, did you ever imagine you'd beat them by 18 points in their own backyard? I mean, this is quite incredible. Like, I think this is Tipperary's worst championship defeat in, I think, possibly ever in Munster.
It's their worst defeat, according to many outlets, since 1897.
Wow.
Against Cork themselves. So it's a big defeat to take. And to be honest, like when you look at Tips, as far as my knowledge goes, their top 4 defeats in their entire history, championship history, 2 of them have been this season, against Cork by 18 points and against Limerick a few weeks ago by 15. And to be honest, the Limerick game could have been more, other than the Peter Casey injury. And it's just a bad light on Tipperary hurling at the moment. And considering even the fans I was mentioning earlier with Semple Stadium, like most of them didn't show up. There didn't seem to be much of an atmosphere from the Tipperary side of things, and it just showed on the pitch. Like in the first half, they got a goal quickly through Barkeo, and you're thinking, okay, Tip have really stuck it into Cork going into the first few minutes. But then last moment of the first half, Alan Connolly hits that goal, and it goes all downhill from there. Like 2 of the Cork goals were incredibly sloppy from a Tip point of view. The second goal for Alan Connolly, where he just waltzes through the fence after intercepting a tip pass, and then the Patrick Horgan goal where Shane Barrett intercepts a pass from a tip player. Like that is, it's basic stuff, and you worry from a Tipperary point of view, where do they actually go from here? Like even you look at last season, and there was a lot of positivity around Tipperary hurling, but when you look at it broad daylight, they only not won 1 game, and that was against Clare and Ennis on the first day out. They didn't win against Cork. They drew against Cork. Probably should have lost in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They drew against Limerick, a Limerick team that was on its knees, to be honest with you. And Waterford, they lost in Thurles last season. So probably that was the red flags. And the Galway game as well last season was really poor. The league, it got worse, and now it's got to rock bottom. And I don't know, like Tipperary fans would even admit this themselves. It was just a rough day at the office, and you don't know where the confidence is going to come with these players. Like you look at even John McGrath coming onto the pitch, Patrick Bonner-Marr, they seem to be devoid of confidence.
Yeah, Keane says here, Tipperary were very poor yesterday, always playing catch up. Where do they go from here? Will Liam Cahill still be in charge of the Premier County? Yeah, it is bleak times for Tipperary, no doubts about that. As you said, like 15-point defeat to Limerick, 18-point defeat obviously to Cork. Like they look not just off it, but a million miles off it. And like, where do they go from here? Like they obviously play Clare up next, and you feel like if there's not a performance there, obviously it is a dead rubber, and regardless of what happens, Tipperary are gone. But I feel like it's similar to Davy Fitz and Waterford last year, where like Waterford went out and beat Tipperary, and it kind of gave everyone within Waterford maybe a bit of confidence, maybe a bit of hope that going into next year things can be better. Would you look at this in a similar light going into that Clare game? Like if they put in a performance, they get a result, then all of a sudden maybe then there's a bit of hope going into next year? Or is it a case of change it now? Like I was listening to Liam Cahill in his post-match interview, and he was talking about like whether it's him or whoever comes in next year, the team is in a great place. So you feel like he's almost like setting it up that he won't be there already next year. But what's your opinion on that?
I think if you're comparing the Waterford and the Tipperary one, it is a decent comparison. But to be honest, like Davy Fitz was in his first season, Liam Cahill is in his second season now in senior level. So like I think he's gone already, to be honest with you. With not just the stuff that happened yesterday, the abject performance that was in the home of hurling in Thurles. I think, honestly, the stuff that went on in the off-season, which I think it was Alan Flynn for Kildangan, that was just a worrying sign at Tipperary hurling, where he was saying the Kildangan players aren't getting a look in, and even it looked that way in the championship as well. Like they look so tactically inept in the forward line, yet their top scorer, the Tipperary championship, Billy Seaver, with 2 goals and 76 points across Tip and Munster, isn't even on the panel. What's up there? Like it just boggles the mind really from Liam Cahill, and it probably just offended the quotes from Alan Flynn at the start of the season more. And you look at the league campaign as well, a lot of things were wrong there. The free taking was an issue. Jason Ford was on 1 week, then he was missing a few frees, then it was Garrett O'Connor. The confidence wasn't particularly there with him. Like you look at Garrett O'Connor, for example, he was the star man for UL in that Fitzgibbon Cup campaign in college level. He can't produce a performance of this Tipperary team, because I think the weight on his shoulders is way too much at this present moment of time. And I think they rely on too much of the older players as well. the likes of even Noel McGrath, Ronan Barr, John McGrath, Patrick Bonamar. They've given so much to Tipperary hurling, but time moves on. Simple as that. And I just think they rely too much on those players. Even look at the free take. It was improved yesterday with 70%, but it was something like 50 or even 40% in games against Limerick in the league, Limerick in the championship, the first game of the championship as well against Limerick. I just think it was very, very poor throughout the season from a Tipperary point of view. And you just wonder, would a like of a Billy Seymour actually change the mindset in this Tipperary team? And worth noting as well, this is a Tipperary team off the back of under-20 success in 2018, 2019, where they won all Ireland titles with the likes of Jake Morris spearheading in the forward line. It looks really poor at the moment, and it's a worrying sign from a Tipperary point of view. It just looks like the fans, even it was a sea of red in Thurles yesterday, which I noticed as well. It just looks like the fans don't have belief in Liam Cahill either. And it just boggles, it just asks the question, what did Liam Cahill actually leave Waterford to go to this for? With all the stuff that happened with Colin Bonner and the backroom team, it was poorly managed, and it was almost a scenario where Liam Cahill has to succeed as Tipperary manager because of the flack he got and things like that in the media in the aftermath of being announced as Tipperary manager with Colin Bonner being sacked. They haven't proved the Tipperary players on the pitch. And it's just a worrying sign more than anything, and it is really, really poor. And you just wonder, where do they go from here next year? Who do they get in as manager? Like, would they get Brendan Cummins in as manager for the under-20s? They tried that experiment with Liam Cahill and it didn't work. So, it's almost like a reading comments there. But yeah, it's a poor one for Tipperary. It's a really difficult one to comprehend. And I just wonder, are they picking the right players? Looking at the Tipperary Championship, like there were some decent games in the Tipperary Championship. Like Kildagangan were a decent side that put it up to Clonlara for a large period in that Munster Championship game, and yet most of their players don't seem to get picked in the Tipperary panel. Like, I'm just wondering what is going on behind the scenes there, because it's not good, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Matthew says here, I agree. They're relying on the older lads too much. It must be said that Cork have been relying on older lads up until the last two matches. Yeah, like that. I suppose that is partly true, and I suppose I remember we were speaking about that after the Waterford game as well. In fairness, A2 says, don't think it's fair to slag off the Tip fans for not turning up to complete non-performance, of proving the fans correct to not bother. Yeah, at the same time, though, I do think you should like go out and support your county. And like, in my opinion, anyway, like if Cork were in that kind of a mess, I think the Cork fans would turn up. Maybe not as many as what turned up in the Tipperary game. I think Limerick, I think Clare fans will turn up, and I don't know what it is. Like it seems to happen sometimes with Kilkenny and Galway a little bit as well. And the Kerry footballers are sometimes a perfect example, where maybe because they're so used to turning up in All-Ireland semi-finals and finals and used to getting to the latter parts, it's a matter of, saving your cash and saving your money for the big day. But yeah, like, what did you make of, like, because it was mental to see, to be honest with you. And I know obviously you were saying you weren't at the game, but like looking at it on the TV, it was just sea of red, and like it must have been, geez, like I don't know how many Tipperary fans were there, but like in your own stadium as well. It was just bizarre to see, to be honest.
I as I mentioned there, I did go through Thurles, and the most fans I actually saw on the streets were Cork. And this is in Thurles. This was Thurles Square, and walking up to the stadium and the roads and things like that, and with the Tipperary colours and everything on the stadium, and it was mostly red. And it just proved, I just think it is poor form. And as you mentioned there, like with Limerick fans and things like that, and even before, like Limerick got the success. I remember in 2018, the semi-final, obviously the semi-final where Seamus Hartney was denied by Nicky Quaid. I went to that game, and Limerick weren't as successful as they were right now, but there was a sea of green and a sea of red. It was a brilliant atmosphere that day, and it just epitomised that the Limerick fans would get behind their team no matter what. Clare's the same, I think. Cork is probably the same in the hurling, maybe not for the football, but that's another side to the story. Donegal is nearly the same in football. You look at other counties, well, Mayo, the exact same. Even if they're struggling, they still go up in their droves and things like that. And there's a lot more diehard supporters. But what I noticed with that Tipperary fan base yesterday, it went down the sense of, number one, it could have been a number of reasons. Number one, they wanted to keep their cash in their pockets, and they were comfortable enough getting to the All-Ireland semi-final or the last stage of the All-Ireland, which I don't think was the case with Tipperary, because I don't think that team is at this stage right now. Or I think it's the latter, which I'm going to mention now. I just don't think the fans believed in Liam Cahill from the very start of the season, with the stuff that went on in the background with Kildangan and stuff like that. Like, I was speaking to a few Tipperary fans, even being up in Limerick and living up in Tipperary for college, and speaking to some Tipperary fans, it seemed like there was no belief in Liam Cahill, despite many strides in many ways last season. And it gave off a vibe that they do not believe in this manager, despite doing well enough last season. It was a recipe for disaster. Like, the players were getting older, the fans didn't believe in their county, and it was just really, really poor from both standpoints. But I think, honestly, from a Tipperary point of view, to get outnumbered in your own stadium like that for a home game, which should be an advantage to you, I think, honestly, the Tipperary players and management need to take some accountability. It was a poor performance. Let's not mask over that. But the fans need to get behind their team as well. Just like a traditional hurling county like Tipperary, third most successful team in the history of the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship, and your fans don't really turn up to this sort of game and let Cork go into the stadium as if it's their home game. I just think it's really, really poor from a Tipperary standpoint, from the Tipperary fan point of view. I just think, the commenter mentioned there that the performances aren't there, but support your team through the bad times. That's what I think, and that's what supporters are there for, to keep going, and even when the times are tough, to keep going when it's not going ideally. Like, I look at the Dublin footballers, for example. Remember the time in 2009 against Kerry where they got absolutely walloped in Croke Park? There was still very sizable Dublin crowd. I think it was nearly a full house there that they are, wasn't it? It was a full house for Dublin and Cork in the All-Ireland semi-final in 2010 as well. And that wasn't when Dublin were successful. Same for Limerick. It was nearly a sea of green in that game in Croke Park against Cork a few seasons back as well, in 2018, when they didn't win an All-Ireland since 1973. So I'd be questioning Tipperary fans' point of view in not turning up in their droves in this game, given the examples I've just given with Limerick and with Dublin.
Yeah, like, it's one of them. Like, if the match was in Croke Park, you completely understand it then, because obviously the cost of travel and everything else, and yeah, probably makes sense. Like, not worth your while and everything else. But look, I suppose, Tipperary fans have saw their county win multiple All-Irelands. They know what it takes. So, in fairness, a lot of them probably did foresee a lot of this coming. In fairness, Fell says here, isn't Eddie Brennan available? Yeah, I suppose it wouldn't be a bad shout. Like, Liam Sheedy got a good mention, like, when I was on Sports Show earlier on the GA Hour. For anyone who wants to listen to that, feel free. Dan Casey and myself are giving Liam Sheedy maybe a bit of a mention, because obviously 2 spells, won multiple All-Irelands, but would he go back again for a third time?
I don't think so. And just going back to that comment there about Eddie Brennan, Kilkenny and Tipperary, it's well documented they're rivals in the hurling landscape. Would Eddie Brennan actually go to Tipperary?
Yeah,
I don't think he would.
Yeah, it'd be a tough one. Like, I know Henry Shefflin went to Galway and everything else, but I think Galway and Kilkenny's rivalry doesn't run as deep as Tipperary Kilkenny. Do you know what I mean? Because of obviously the 5 in a row being stopped and everything else, and obviously the history of those multiple All-Irelands. In fairness.